Good morning.
Morning, guys.
Morning. I hope you guys stay positive but hasn't negative, right? Okay. So in this morning, we will present you one of the special needs in children, which is the deafness. There are four topics that we will discuss today through these presentations. The first one is what are the definitions and the classification of the deafness. The second one is what can cause the hearing impairments. The third one is what are the effects on children's and how about their educations. And the last one is what are the educational consideration. Moving on. The definition and the classification of deaf. Deaf are classified into two types, which are the deaf and hard of hearing. Before that, there are almost 500 million people in the world who lost their hearings, and 5% of them are the children. And then the definition of deaf based on the psychological, the deaf is the person who cannot hear sound at all above a certain decibels, and then the hard of hearing, they can still hear a sound, but up to a certain decibels. Actually, they got the uh, measurement, they got the category for the hard of hearing, like the mild is from 26 decibel to 40 decibels, and then the moderate is 50 decibel until 70 decibels, and then the severe one is 71 decibel and above. And you can read more. They got the exact measurement and for each stage. And then next one, based on the educational, the deaf is the person who precludes successful processing linguistic informations, means that they are failed to process the linguistic, and they are hard of hearing. And the hard of hearing is the person who still can hear, but required to use the hearing aids, and they only hear from the residual hearings, and they are successful processing the linguistic informations, but sometimes they also unable to process it, like they will took several times to understand and maybe ask for the repetitions about the informations. And then
Okay, so how is hearing ability measured? Actually, there are three ways to measure your hearing ability. The first one is through screen testing. It is usually for infants that measure it's a bit hard to pronounce. It's acoustic emissions. Basically, it's trying to detect the low intensity sound emitted from the cochlea. It's the inner ear part that show whether that ear part is functioning well or not. And then the second one is pure tone audiometry. It assess one's capacity of hearing by using sound tests with different decibels and hertz levels. And the third one is speech audiometry. Speech audiometry assesses the ability to detect and understand speech. The test consists of pairing up words and testing whether the person understands or not. It's more linguistic.
okay, then What are the causes of hearing impairments? The first one, the hearing impairments can be caused by the internal organs, such as from the middle and outer ear area. It's called the conductive. And then if the problem source from the inner ear area, it's called the sensory neural. And then the mixed type, the mixed hearing, are the combinations between the conductive and the sensory neurals. And then the hearing impairments can also caused by the virus, tumor, bacterial infections, and the other disease. Most of the common cause of hearing impairments is from the hereditary cases, but it can also caused by the accidents or the high exposure to the loud noises like gunshot, loud music, or any kind of damage. What are the effects on children and their education? So in the classroom, they are hard to understand the informations. It also can affect their academic achievement, like they might be learning slower than the hearing children because they lesser comprehension of spoken language. And then the second one is they are lack of the social interactions, especially in the inclusive classroom. They are hard to making friends compared to the special needs school, the SLB, where they can use sign language and they can chat as much as possible as they want. But in inclusive classroom, they need to learn together with the hearing students, with the normal students. That's why they are lack of the social interactions. And then the last one is the deaf children. They have the same IQ level with the hearing students. So the deafness does not affect on their intelligence at all. After this, we will show you the video of the comparison between the hearing students, the normal students, and the hard of hearing students. So the hard of hearing students, they will use the hearing aids in daily life. Well, you can listen it by yourself, the comparison, how the hard of hearing students will listen compared to the normal one.
Some of you might be thinking, well, if the student has hearing aids or cochlear implants, then they're just like hearing students and they don't need accommodations, right? No, that is a big misconception. Sound that is processed through a hearing aid or cochlear implant is not the same as a sound that is heard directly through the ear.
The BBC would like to announce that the next scene is not considered suitable for family viewing. It contains scenes of violence involving people's heads and arms getting chopped off.
Okay. You got it, right? That is why the hard of hearing students are need more time to understand the informations, to process the informations, because what they heard are not the same like the normal students. And then next one, how to teach them.
Okay, so after you guys already hear how the hard of hearing students hear, Therefore, we as a teacher need to know how to teach them, right? There are 4 approaches. The first one is oral teaching. Teaching hearing impaired students to speak. Actually, oral approach is divided into 2 sub-approaches. The first one is the auditory verbal, which is teaching them through ways of speech with tools to amplify their hearing capacity. This approach involves explicit instruction regarding speech training. Sorry, is my camera on, Jerika?
Yes.
So, auditory verbal, it taught the hard of hearing students to also speak. Jadi they repeated what the teacher said with a sign. And the other, for example, I'm sorry if I use bahasa. Okay, is sisir. They need to repeat it, the lip movement. Sisir. They need to repeat it, and the teacher will help them by the
showing the gesture.
Sorry. Yeah, the gestures. So they need to repeat while they are given the gesture. They understand it is the combing here. Okay. And the other sub approach is auditory oral, which teaches deaf students speech ability. It is similar to auditory verbal. The difference is more inclusion of the visual cues such as speech reading and cue speech. It involves the students to read the lips and common body movement. Okay, so the second approach is the manual one. It is teaching hearing impaired students to use manual language or sign language. It stresses more about communication through sign language and the study of it. The approach do not use the official sign language per se, but it use a variative less official version. So like it's not the standard sign language. Jadi it's like a freestyle, more like a freestyle one. Like for example, a ball, like it's a freestyle one. It's not the one that they the standardized one. So it's like, yeah, a freestyle one. Sorry. And the third one is a total communication, which is a blend of oral and manual approach that use both approaches and merge them. And lastly is a bicultural bilingual. This approach consists of 3 features. It is the usage of ASL, or it's American Sign Language. Or in Indonesia, we use Sistem Bahasa Isyarat, Isyarat Indonesia, or CB. It's the inclusion of deaf people in the development of the curriculum and the involvement of instruction regarding the deaf culture. Next one, Jer. Okay, so to teach them, there are actually a few things to know, especially for teachers. Teachers of hard of hearing students or deaf students, when designing a class and the activities in it. First one, if you want to teach the deaf or hard of hearing students, please place the students away from areas that has a lot of background noises, such as near doors or windows, because it will distract them a lot. The next one, use sign of finger spelling or promote speech reading while instructing. The next one is to use as many visual support as possible, since we already know that we need to consider that the fact that deaf students or hard of hearing students may not be able to learn under optimum condition. So giving them a visual support would be very helpful. And also, please make sure to always face your students whenever you deliver the instructions. And next one is to use nonverbal cues to emphasize verbal direction, such as face expression, like that. And then you need to repeat questions and answer given by other students to the rest of the class, since they need a little more time to process, they need a little more time to understand. So please just repeat it so they, just to make sure they got the message.
Maybe for the last part, in Indonesia, it's like jangan capek-capek mengulang, isn't it? Right, the teacher must repeat it for the students until they understand.
Yes.
Next one.
So
Interesting
actually,
takeaway.
from this topic and from the book also, I found an interesting takeaways from the deaf people, deaf community. Actually, they have deaf people in general. They have a community which believes that the deaf is not a disability, but instead a sort of a cultural or communal society that has a language and cultural heritage. And of course, it should be respected. And this is something that needs to be considered by teachers. And the sign language as a way to show that the deaf are a certain community of people that is different from the hearing people. This poses also from this poses a challenge to the educators, specifically special educators that need to mitigate the difference and make sure that all students feel they are all normal in the eye of education.
Well, maybe I can tell you a few story about deaf. Well, actually, I've just learned about it right now. I mean, after I learned the what are the deaf and the hard of hearing, I just learned more. So back then, in the middle school until the high school, I have friends. She's so pretty, but she cannot hear us clearly when we call her name unless we tap her back. And it turns out that she is hard of hearing students that caused by sinusitis. So yeah, I just know it that deaf and hard of hearing can cause by disease. For her case, it's sinusitis, but she graduated with flying colors. Yeah, she is smart, but sometimes she is hard to understand. And the most challenging part is when we shout her name, she doesn't even look back to us. When the teacher call her name, she also don't know. Like, in the high school, in the friendships, pasti sering manggil temen. And then she doesn't know that you're calling. Okay, then.
But it shows that how hard of hearing doesn't affect her academic.
Yes, we still graduate together. And then next one, these are the two questions. Maybe can we explain a bit?
Yeah. So we just have two questions for you guys. The first question is, in your opinion, why does deafness cause incomprehension of spoken language? You can just explain it in your way. And the second one is, if you put yourself as a teacher in a teacher's shoe, what are the assessment that you will give to the learners with deafness or hard of hearing? Please give us minimum 2 assessment. two kind of assessment.
Okay, then. Thank you very much for your attention. Yay.
Thank you.
Thank you.